The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one can take them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all. No one can take them out of the Father's hand. Father and I are one." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
My sheep hear my voice. Hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. The fourth Sunday of Easter is traditionally called Good Shepherd Sunday because we have a selection from the Gospel talking about Jesus as the Good Shepherd. In this Gospel from John, Jesus is talking about his sheep and how they listen to him. The image that Jesus is using is the way sheep were cared for at his time. There would be a large sheepfold. It's a structure, sort of a circle made out of rock with walls about 4 or 5 feet high, and with an opening about as wide as a sheep. And that was the only way into the sheepfold. And all the shepherds would come in the late afternoon or early evening and bring their sheep there. They would take the sheep into the sheepfold one by one. They'd all get in there. There'd be all these sheep in there. They'd be all mixed up so they could spend the night there and be safe, so that the robbers didn't get them or the wolves who would pick them off otherwise. And one of the shepherds would lay in the opening to the sheepfold to sleep. He's the gate to the sheepfold. And that way they kept the sheep safe, and no one could enter without the shepherd being aware of it. Then in the morning, sun comes up, time to go out. So all the shepherds come, they come for their sheep. So they start calling their sheep. It's the song they sing is like a yodel sort of sound, and each shepherd would have his own melody. So the shepherd would come to the opening in the sheepfold, he'd start singing his song, and his sheep would hear him, and they'd all start coming towards him. Only his, nobody else, no other sheep. So his sheep would come out of this crowd of sheep and come to him and then follow him out into the green pastures for the day. And they would follow him because they knew his voice. Then another shepherd would come, sing another tune. His sheep would hear that, and they would come with him, and they too would go out to the green pastures. And so Jesus is talking about how his disciples are the people who hear his voice. They know him, and they trust him, and they follow him. And he's using that image then, the shepherd going off into the green fields with his sheep all behind him. And that's an image that we have of the church in which Jesus is our shepherd. And he cares for us, and he calls us and communicates with us in many ways in our lives as Christians. An image I have is all of the sheep in the church coming out following Jesus, and then the clergy are like the border collies, and they're all out there on the edge running about, barking and keeping things organized. That's our job, to keep everything organized. But basically we're following Jesus, the Good Shepherd. And he promises that no one would take them away from him. They're safe. They're safe with him. The shepherd would never hurt the sheep. Never. If it was time for shearing or slaughtering, shepherds never did that. Other people would come in to do that, so that the sheep never saw the shepherd as a risk or someone they didn't trust. And so that bond between the sheep and the shepherd is very strong. And Jesus uses that as a sign of his relationship with his church. But he's also connecting it with his relationship with his Father. The Father cares for the sheep as well, and that Jesus and the Father are one, and so they care for the sheep that the Lord has given him. And so we're reminded to, as disciples of Jesus, to listen to his voice. Listens to his voice in our lives. Jesus talks to us every day. The issue is, are we listening? Do we listen to his voice? Sometimes he'll talk to us through the scriptures, or he'll talk to us through our prayer life or through the sacraments. He'll speak to us sometimes through other people. Somebody will say something and they say, "Ooh, I had never thought of that." And also we can just get an inkling. It's sort of like a feeling. It's sort of like just a notion. Or sometimes the Lord can talk to us through dreams. You see that in the scriptures. You can dream something, even wake up at night and say, I got it. Now I know what the Lord wants me to do. And so it's important that we listen to that. We, spend some time each day, shut off all the noise, all the computers and the iPhones and the television and the stereo, and just sit quietly, just for a while every day, listening. What is the Lord telling me today to do? What is He doing to guide me? St. Paul in the letters to the Romans says that the Spirit speaks to us not through words so much, but through a groaning too deep to really talk about. But the Spirit's there working with us and with the Lord's church. So we're called to be sensitive to that and know that the Lord helps us and guides us. Jesus is here to save us, not to hurt us. And as sheep, we're called to trust in the Lord, to trust in His Word and trust in His love for us. In American culture, we sometimes have trouble with the idea of being a sheep. That feels like that's sort of not right. I'm not a sheep. I'm an independent person. I can do this myself. Well, that's sort of like if you've ever raised a preschooler. Try to dress them when it's time to go to school, and they'll push your hand away and say, no, I can do this myself. You can leave me alone. I can do this myself. Well, of course, they end up with all the buttons are wrong, and if they want to dress themselves in the morning, they end up going to preschool looking like a clown, because they think that they're trying to be capable little kids, but they're not even rational yet, and so they need a lot of help. They need guidance from the parent, even though sometimes they'll push that away. We can sometimes do that with God. We can think, God, well, I don't need you. I can figure this out by myself. I have my 10-year plan, and, we're on to this thing, and I'm on top of this. And then something will happen. All of a sudden we realize, no, we're not. We're not in charge of this life. And so it's important for us to be sensitive to what is the Lord speaking to us about. Sometimes deep in our hearts, we know what He wants. Deep down, I know what the Lord wants me to do. Maybe I don't want to do it. Maybe that's hard or embarrassing, or it's something that's going to cost me. And so I resist it, or I try to avoid it. But deep down I know, what is it that Jesus wants me to do? What's He calling me to do? And the hope is we can discern that and spend time with that, and then get clear what the Lord wants for us in this life, and then listen to Him as His sheep who are attentive to the Lord, who trust in the Good Shepherd, and follow Him to green pastures.